Welcome back to the Play Action Pod. You got me, Brock. You got Brennan over there. And today we are going to talk to you guys about why the college football playoff has ruined college football.
Pretty much a hot take.
Pretty much a very hot take. But I think it's something I actually truly believe. I truly believe that the college football playoff has done a lot more negatives to the college football landscape than it has done positives.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I know that he presented me this segment a couple hours ago, actually. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting.
Had a whole PowerPoint and everything.
Yeah. He sat me down in like a conference room and he's like, all right, so here's the reasons why. And, I was pretty much sold on it. Actually, I haven't heard this at all yet. So give me the first reason. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with opt-outs. Bowl game opt-outs has become a big popular thing over the last couple of years. And I don't necessarily 100% believe it's because of the college football playoff, but I think the college football playoff has a big role in it. And that's because, it's just not important anymore to play it in the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl if they're not a playoff semifinal. So it's like, if I'm a high priority draft pick, I'm going to be drafted in the first round. Why would I play in a bowl game that isn't going to increase my value most likely? And it doesn't really bring me a national championship.
Yeah, that's a trend we've seen, across the past, since the playoffs started. The playoffs start 2014, 2015. So, teams are still making those New Year's Six bowl games that used to be extremely significant. That was kind of your season, was to get to those. But now, teams are getting to that New Year's Six game. And then, we got players opting out because they don't think it's significant.
Yeah, and I want everyone to know that I am very supportive of kids opting out. I think it's a good financial decision, especially if you're going to be, a high, maybe day one, maybe day two pick. But I think that's a direct negative of the college football playoff is, this will go into my second point as well. There's only really 2 bowl games per year that are important. And it's playoff semifinal 1 and it's playoff semifinal 2.
Those are the only 2 bowl games that matter?
In my opinion, yes. Because if you're not playing for a national championship anymore, then what are you playing for, right? And I think we've seen that over the last couple seasons with a lot of these teams that if they don't make the playoff, then they're really not interested in playing in a New Year's Six bowl. They have a lot of opt-outs, and it just turns into, just a less desirable game.
So we're seeing that this year, correct?
Yeah, we've seen it this year. We've seen it last year. This year is actually, I haven't seen it as much though.
Yeah.
There has been a decrease, I think it came out that Bryce Young and Will Anderson were going to play in the Sugar Bowl. But I know we saw a couple Tennessee players opt out. Obviously Hendon Hooker won't play because he's injured. But, we saw Utah have a couple opt-outs, Penn State, same thing, couple opt-outs as well. And it's just kind of that thing. If you're not playing in the college football playoff, then it's just not as important as it used to be.
So it's just you think it's just ruining the game?
Yeah, I do actually. I really do. Because there's just no bowl games that really mean much anymore besides the semifinals.
Okay.
And it's like, back when during the BCS era, there was 7 bowl games that mattered. There was the 6 New Year's Six bowl games that if you got there, that was a big achievement for your season.
And you're playing for sure.
Yeah, except like 2 teams.
Yeah.
But, most teams were very excited to play in a New Year's Six bowl game. And that was a big accomplishment. So there's obviously those 6, and then there's the national championship game as well. So it's like there's 7 games that mattered, and they mattered a lot.
7 significant games, and now you're saying there's only 2 significant bowl games now. That's a steaming hot take.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would disagree. But I do agree with that.
Well, I think people like the playoff because, when you think of American sports, playoffs is like the main thing.
Yeah.
You think of NFL, you think of playoffs. You think of NBA, you think of playoffs. You think of MLB, think of playoffs. So it's, when the NCAA came out and said, hey, we're putting a college football playoff together, how could you not be excited about that?
Yeah.
It's extra. It's technically an extra game, I would say, because you get, well, maybe not actually.
Yeah, because the bowl.
You still get the 6 New Year's Six games. And then
wouldn't technically a bowl game be considered playoff? You're not competing for the championship, but it's a game after the season.
You would think so, yeah.
But now it just doesn't even, it's like if you didn't make the 4-team playoff, it's like you didn't make the playoff at all, and your season was just toast, dude.
Well, yeah, and it's like you look at this year specific. You look at Alabama. This is a failed year. You know, no
Yeah.
playoff for them. That's a failed year.
Which for most teams, that is a great year.
Going to the Sugar Bowl for probably 95% of the teams in the FBS is a great year. It's
Yeah.
a really good year.
Which, I mean, talking about Bama, and I don't know if you want to, open that can of worms about how Bryce Young and Will Anderson are playing.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I'm indifferent about it. You know, I'm for, people protecting their draft status because I think, the game of football is bigger than just like one bowl game. But I also wish that, bowl games had more meaning to make these players want to play in them.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you win your college, the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, congrats.
Mm.
Good job.
For Bama, I mean, with their standards, it's different.
Yeah. It's like, you got to win a national championship. And
I know.
when Nick Saban walks into your house, he's not, saying, hey, we're going to win the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to win a national championship.
Uh,
And, that's become the standard for, I'd probably say there's like 5 or 6 teams in that group. I'd say it's probably like, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. I'd say Clemson's in that group. I would even say Oklahoma. I know they had a down year.
Definitely not this year.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's college football.
And then, maybe like
them.
Michigan.
Michigan, yeah. I'd say Michigan's the same way.
Oh,
So-
I get that.
So yeah, it's like, I'm glad we get to see another game of Bryce Young and Will Anderson. But if they came and said, hey, we're opting out of the bowl game, there's really no benefit for us to play in it, I would 100% agree with them. I bet that's a smart move. Protect your money. You're going to be making a ton of money in April. Like, I respect that decision wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So back on the, why college football playoff ruined college football. What's your second reason?
Yeah. And I just think, going back to, the games, there used to be 7 games that mattered. All the New Year's 6 games used to really matter. And, obviously the national championship game was the same way. Like, I remember, when going to the Rose Bowl was a prestigious honor. And I'm not saying it's not anymore. It's just the value has declined a little bit because you saw it with Ohio State. They were sitting there at home waiting for, the Utah USC game in the Pac-12 championship, hoping that USC would lose because they viewed their season as over by going to the Rose Bowl. They even told the Rose Bowl committee
that they weren't going to go.
So it's like, I think that's a direct reflection of the playoff. It's Ohio State. When those kids get recruited there, they're recruited there to make the playoff.
Exactly. And think about them last year. I mean, they made the Rose Bowl, which, again, disappointing for them, for their standards. And then, think of all the guys who opted out. Talking Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. They were on their 3rd and 4th string wide receivers who were great. But, I mean, they're definitely playing if they're in the playoff.
Definitely.
And who knows if there's no playoff. Think of if they go back and they never started a playoff and they made the Rose Bowl, would those guys be playing in that game?
I think they would. I think they really would because, it's only 2 teams are competing for a national championship. So only 2 teams had the chance to, experience kind of what that's like. But it's now that the playoff is a thing, you expand that, you double that. There's 4 teams now experiencing what the playoff is like and 4 teams that want to strive and reach, that goal.
Yeah, that's fair. For sure.
I just think it's decreased the amount of really important bowl games. And I think that's another negative, of the playoff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. What's their next reasoning?
Another reason that I came up with was, playing in your conference championship game can either hurt you or help you. And I know like it's kind of a contradicting statement, but if you look at it this way, USC was playing in their conference championship game when they were already listed as one of the top 4 teams in the nation at 11-1, while Ohio State was also 11-1.
At 5.
At 5, exactly.
At 5. So just waiting.
You're looking at those 2 teams, and before USC plays the conference championship game, the committee is telling us that USC is a better team than Ohio State. Utah goes out and beats USC, and now USC is no longer better than Ohio State because Ohio State was sitting on the couch and USC played a football game.
That's bad. That's bad.
It's a bad precedent. It's like,
it is bad.
If USC does not play in that Pac-12 championship game, they're in the playoff.
They are.
Like they're playing for, they're playing against Georgia.
Same thing with TCU. I mean, if they had one loss, it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
They'd be top 4 going into that game. And if they weren't playing that weekend, then they would be in the playoff. But if they were to lose, then they would be excluded. So, I mean, same thing. Both teams would have been punished for playing an extra week.
And I know this is something that we haven't seen. I think this is the first kind of year that we've seen this unique situation where the 5 and 6 teams in the country were both sitting at home instead of playing in their conference championship games. But I just think it just sets a bad precedent. It's like you get rewarded for being a good team and making your conference championship, while these 2 other teams who didn't quite reach that feat, but they have a better chance of getting in if you lose. So it's like, I just wasn't really a fan of that. I just didn't really think it sat too well with me. And then kind of the inverse side of this was TCU back in 2014 when they were co-champions in their conference, but they didn't play for a conference championship game because, the Big 12 just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And they got excluded because of it. So it's like, I just think, that college football has turned into more of, instead of looking at the product in the field and deciding that way, it's become so many other metrics.
Do you think it's for ratings?
I can't say it's not. I definitely can't say it's not.
Do you think it's for, getting the top, not necessarily the top 4 teams in the country? Because I mean, USC, they could be a top 4 team in the country. They were exposed by Utah, but I mean, we wouldn't have known that if they didn't play, that Pac-12 championship.
Well, yeah, if USC sits at home, their one loss is on the road to a 2-point conversion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
against a top 15 opponent at the time.
That's basically a perfect season. You just had one play go against you, and that's it. So it's like I'm just not a fan of how the playoff kind of has turned the conversation to, well, this team beat this team by 12, but this team beat that same team by 20. So this team is better.
It's greater, yeah.
It's just like,
no, I don't like that.
It's a lot of judging, and it's a lot of hypotheticals.
Yep.
And I'm just not a fan of it. I'm just not a fan of it. And it was better in the BCS era when you could clearly look and be like, those are the 2 best teams. Those are the 2 teams playing for the national championship. And if you were the 3rd or 4th team, instead of being like, dang, like we're not playing in a conference championship game, it's like, we got to go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
We got to go to the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl.
And that's seen as, a successful season.
A really good season, yeah. So it's like, it's just made, the gap of importance. Like I said, I believe that there used to be 7 important games. Now it's down to 2. So that's 4 teams playing important games instead of 14. So it's like, that's a big number.
Yeah,
that's a big change.
Do we want to talk about, are we gonna save our thoughts on the 12-team playoff? Or we'll save it?
Yeah, we'll save those.
And how it may potentially be saving college football.
Yeah, we got another video.
Yeah, that'll be our next segment. But that's kind of our take on how the playoff has pretty much ruined college football. You think that it was a just rushed model, and they should have taken some more time to think about how it was going to play out?
Yeah, and I think an easy fix to the initial 4-team model would have been a 6-team model. I think benefit the 5 Power 5 conferences for winning your conference, and then throw in a group of 6 team for winning their conference as well. 1 and 2 have byes. 3 through 6 play each other. Winner of those games play 1 and 2. I think it's as simple, because then it's like, if you go out and win your conference, then you're in the playoff.
Yeah.
It's like, it's rewarding you for playing on conference championship day. And then all of those teams are playing for something, not only playing for their conference, but they're also playing for a playoff bid.
So you think it would be 5 automatic bids for the Power 5 conferences and then 1 group of 5 team?
Yeah. And like, I think that's just an easier model at 6. I think you could do 8 and do similar thing, just 5 auto bids for the Power 5 conferences, 1 bid for the G5s, and then 2 at-larges. I think it would work the same way.
For 8?
For 8.
For 8, okay.
And then, that way 1 plays 8, rest of the way 2-7.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think 4 is just a weird number. It's a really weird number because, it obviously excludes at least one Power 5 conference every year. At least one. This year we saw it where it excluded 2.
Yeah.
So it was just a weird model, and it kind of made it so that certain teams were always going to make it because of how their schedules were lined up compared to others.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just set different criteria for other teams. Because if you look at it in this way, like an SEC team could schedule 4 just super weak non-conference opponents because they were going to play Georgia, they're going to play Alabama, they're going to play LSU, they're going to play, Tennessee, Ole Miss.
Yeah,
they're going to play all those teams.
There's no need.
There's no need to play anybody else. But
it takes away the excitement of, football in late August, early September.
Exactly. But to kind of continue that point, if you look at like an ACC or a Pac-12 team, there's a good chance you're not playing, 4, 5 of the better teams in the conference or the country. So it's like you have to go out there and schedule, powerhouse opponents, which could result in an early loss early in the season, which could hurt you the rest of the way.
100%. Yeah, totally agree with that. But I think that's going to be it for us talking about why the playoff essentially ruined college football. But we'll be back with another segment about where we talk about the 12-team playoff is going to essentially save the sport. So we'll be back on that